Mag agus fáilte gach den seo, Tásúlam go cruniú iontachaí le couple of lá nuas. I've just come back from Kerry. Thank you. And I was reminding them down there that if you want inspiration in this country, you should go out through Ballinskelligs and walk up by Kilreelig to the top of Bola's Head and look west, Skellig Michael. And as the poet said, he who has not walked among the beehive huts does not know his country through and through. So I said to Jimmy Deenahan down there, obviously, the spirit of those who went before us. I've been down there with Star Wars recently. Luke Skywalker has been around that place. So I think the motto for IPPN, indeed for us all, for myself in days to come, should be, The Force Awakens. There you are. Anyway, thank you, David. I hope you introduce me as well if I meet you in the near future. Thank you. I may have to ask you for something here today, for the use of your rooms. I know that at the centenary AGM here you've been talking about leadership over the last 100 years, and indeed some of that has been provided by you yourselves. Some of the most compelling leadership goes on every day in so many unseen ways about who we are, our personality, where we can be, and the force that is within us all to continue to make our country and our people to be reckoned with, as they are all over the world. You do that from your educational genesis, educare, to educate, to lead, which is what you do every day. And in the last number of years, obviously in your own personal lives, but particularly for those whom you do lead, you've had to show what it is to be optimistic, to be forward-thinking, to be positive, given the scale of challenge that so many people have faced and still do face. But for you at front of a class or working with students, it's been so important that in a time of difficulty, a time of challenge, that there are people who are not afraid to take the steps that lead us to the future. Obviously, you've looked at, spoken to, and listened to pupils whose parents have had difficulties paying bills, difficulties making ends meet, often abroad, other challenges, and you're expected to create an environment in which they can learn and follow and evolve and develop. Obviously, stress is a difficult thing for people to cope with. It comes in so many unseen ways. And as you know better than most, where attachment to a parent is deep as it is, a child will know instinctively if there is something wrong at home or in the house or whatever. So therefore, I want to thank you publicly for the job you have been doing, for the job you do in leading and educating our young children over these last challenging years. And I know that there are 1,100 principals here today, and Bhualam some of Vuichas at Lachaliv, Gopaibli, our father, Sukhta number Tashavayana. I spoke to my own party gathering here last weekend, and I said that the residual effects of the recession have not dissipated for many people, and that the recovery clearly underway is not being felt in so many lives. And that's the challenge for the country, to give the benefits of a rising economy, make them felt behind every door, as we say. So recovery is real, but it's also fragile. And obviously, the government's perspective is that recovery of an economy is not an end in itself. If you translate it into your own lives, you have to paint the house, replace items that break down or whatever. You have to have the resources to be able to provide those. And it's the same with an economy, because it's about people and having the resource to meet and provide the facilities and the services that they need. One of the issues that I was trying to address today in launching the Midwest Capital Programme out to 2021 as part of a national programme, where there's a 42 billion spend. 27 of that comes directly from the Exchequer. The remainder comes from PPPs and from spending from state agencies. But that includes, if you like, a social economy and an economic transfer, whether it be for roads or major pieces of infrastructure. Social economy includes, obviously, schools and the opportunity for principals and for teachers to have the facilities to do their job for what they're trained. And one of those commitments that is now seeing the light of day is the ending of the education of children, sometimes for their entire primary school years, in prefab buildings. But the consequence of that, or the impact of that, is a social dividend, and it's not seen for some time until those children emerge through and go to secondary school and all of that. The recovery for me is, if you like, the demonstration of and giving witness to that in the lives of the people. Because the economy is not an end in itself, it's an engine to provide and deal with challenges and facilities and services that people need. And that's the only way that we're going to get to a point where our young people are going to have the opportunity to live and work here in their own country. Last night I met a man from Kerry who said, you know, my 3 children have come back from Australia. A family reunited. It's so important in the sense of who we are. And that can only happen when there's confidence and there's evidence that it's worthwhile to be working here. On Wednesday, I was down in Spencer Dock, at Credit Suisse, creating 100 jobs. And 48 of those, I've never been here before, they're primary trading seats for markets, stocks and all of that. Normally confined to London and New York, now they're in Ireland. They're going to attract high-quality people returning home in the main, which will become a magnet in its own way for so many others. I left that and went to Dublin Castle. It's 700 financial people talking about Europe's financial future, based here in this country, with enormous potential for that to grow in a whole range of areas and jobs that were never known before in Ireland, where we've got to train people and educate them and lead them to a point where they can contribute into that changing world that's so much. And I went out to Blackrock, to the College of Further Education, to talk to people out there about the national programme for skills and for new apprenticeships, again for trades and occupations that we've not been used to in this country, be it data analytics or data assessment or financial services or whatever. And yesterday I was at the Social Innovation Fund, which is backed euro for euro by the state and what's raised from philanthropy about issues that can impact on young lives and on communities. There's so many inspirational people thinking about how they can make a change nation, change community and all of that. And I find in this privileged position of being able to go around the country, you see so many communities that are challenged, and yet in all of these pressure points, leaders emerge as to what ideas they can put together to improve the lot of communities. This morning I was in Ballyseedy, outside Tralee, where ENET have put together a 250 megabyte capacity for the rural parish there to be the centre of the globe in terms of its digital capacity. We need to see that all over the country. In the pilot programs I've seen in primary schools, where children can talk to Alaska or Australia or wherever, to their own peers about music, about dance, about dress, about food, about sport, about all of these things, it gives them at a very early opportunity an understanding that we are all interconnected. And when I see the impact of drawing our diaspora together from all of these countries, I genuinely do realize that from an Irish perspective, there's very little can actually stop us if we have a clear objective in mind as to what we want to achieve. And for me, the mandate given to government, if you like, was to fix our public finances and put the country back to work. And you have travelled a long journey in a short time to a point where our integrity is restored and our credibility internationally is restored. The investment line into the country is very strong, and the figures now are moving very much in the right direction for small businesses and all of that. And that includes obviously you who have to stand in front of the classroom. I always refer to the late Brian McMahon down in Listowel, who used to say that every child has a gift, be it academic, be it artistic, be it sporting. Somebody might be a mediator, a negotiator, a peacemaker, a listener, or whatever. And he used to say, so your challenge is, can you find the flower? Can you identify what each one's gift is? And it's not easy. And sometimes it might not be apparent until they've left the primary sector, and you can say, well, why didn't I see that, or whatever. And in the pressurized jobs you have, that's not easy to show that kind of leadership, and yet it's so important. For what I see, that there are young peers around the world, we're actually very highly rated by other countries in terms of what it is that we can do. I was in Davos there last week talking to senior executives from some of the very big companies around the world, and when you ask them, it's not just about a 12.5% corporate tax rate. It's about the talent pool, because the frontiers up ahead are changing so rapidly. This Christmas just passed, there was $70 billion of online trading in the United States. First time that it passed out retail sales across the counter. And 40 billion of that was conducted by one company. So when you can consider that they're now in a position to almost say, we will deliver to you, irrespective of where you are, within a half a day, or a few hours, or an hour, you understand how the thing is moving. And when you look at the billions of pieces of data information that are available, your job as teachers has changed also, and is changing. You have to become a counselor, a sifter of information, a pointer to what's real, what's priority, what's important. Because those who are passing through your schools and through your classes are going to have to cope with that in the very near future. And when I met with the Digital Council, the young people who come through the process of mentoring and writing of Coder Dojo and the language that makes computers work, 11, 12-year-old, I said, well, what's your interest in this? And he said, well, I'm interested in human rights. I said, well, why are you interested in human rights? And his answer was very interesting. He said, well, I kind of want to make a difference. I kind of want to make a difference. Isn't that what we all want to do, to make a difference? Isn't that what you do every day, to make a difference? And the little difficulties that children have in your classes, that you can address them and hopefully be able to deal with that and lead them on. I think early and accurate intervention is so important for young children where there's a complication or a stress, and it may not be one that's evident in the beginning. It might be a problem in the background or at home or whatever, and you yourselves know that that's a sensitive issue. You've got to be able to deal with it occasionally. But innovation should never be enervating. It should be inspiring for people. So I'd like to say that, I did my teaching practice many, many years ago myself, and the teacher there was saying, well, I recall when they made the road outside, they broke the stone, and they put it through the rings, and engineers would come and check it out. And he said, soon I found myself educating the children of those whom I educated a few years ago. And when I taught them fractions or decimals or whatever it was, I had to go back again and teach them in a month and teach them in 3 months and 6 months. And he said the road was still there. So permanence and things that drift from people's minds, are all part of the education, are all part of that education business. But leadership, 100 years of leadership, stands out for those who have a memory of good teachers. And when you ask people of very adult years, who do they remember from their teaching years? It's always some little difference. Methods of teaching, the stories that they were told, the impression that were made, and what that can actually lead on to. And I see them in plants around the country now, and they will say, I got this spark a number of years ago and I just followed that lead, and it allows me to contribute to our country. I'd like to think that we can all understand that to have the resources from an economy to invest in the services that you need requires that economy to continue to improve and thrive. So if you say to me, well, teaching principals need an opportunity to be able to do administrative work, and that you need, in cases, a day to do administrative work because of the pressure load that arrives here. As Sean said to me, many of your principals are the best paid secretaries in the country. Now, to do that and deal with the facilities and the buildings and ending the prefabs and the opportunities that people, means we have to keep this economy powering along. And actually, as citizens of the country, that's a choice that you're going to have to make fairly soon. And that is your choice, and that's democracy. And there are choices up ahead, and there's a consequence to every choice, as you know. But every school is different, every child is different, and every circumstance is different, and one size does not fit all. And it may well be that what you have to do in your classrooms or your schools may be very different than the one down the road. I like to think that when people say to me, they've been closing schools, the government have closed no schools, some places people want to amalgamate and say we'll do this voluntarily, we should support those. I recall difficulties in that regard in many places over the years. I think that the schools should be allowed, to have flexibility in terms of the decisions they make from an authority point of view. It's a key way, if you like, to guarantee movement and change in the profession in the greater interests of everybody. Obviously, with greater autonomy comes greater accountability, and that's where your relationship with parents is crucial. I've been before the desk and behind the desk. I know that obviously all parents are at idem about their ambitions for their children. Sometimes they treat those ambitions and pressurize them in different ways. Obviously, everybody would like to think that the children, the young people, can reach their individual potential, and you have to identify that and maybe guide them towards where that point is. So the relationship between principals and parents is absolutely critical, and I know that in some cases that can be a difficult relationship for a variety of reasons. Obviously, as school self-evaluation develops, both schools and parents should set the standards that they want to reach together and have that open and above board. I think that one of the issues that's been floating around has been the fact that teachers need more time to develop school improvement plans. You've got ideas for where you teach, particularly those of you who are teaching principals. What goals are you aiming for there? What do you want for your children? Well, firstly, in a competitive and ever-changing world, we need in this country to have better outcomes in PISA. We can be a leader in those markings, in those rankings. And pupils need to be challenged and motivated by mathematics and science, be given every opportunity to achieve their full potential. Obviously, foundations are set where you teach. And it's at that crucial point that the OECD says countries should invest more resources where outcomes are more achievable and foundations for future success are laid. I believe in that. And if we can keep that recovery going, and that's exactly where we're going to have the capacity to invest in schools. Secondly, I think it's important that pupils would be equipped with the life skills that will guide them as they transition from primary to secondary and to a further point into adulthood. Obviously, in today's world, our children need to understand and utilize their own resilience to develop their decision-making capacity and their communication skills. In a world where it's all of the handheld equipment now for checking and for contact and for for communication. I've been in so many houses, 3 or 4 in the one room, all in different places, television on, nobody watching it or whatever. And indeed, in some cases, you've had to say, lay down the law here and say, look, I'm your daddy, I want to talk to you, or whatever. Could we leave those things aside for the moment while we sit at a table and have a little chat here over whatever it might be, breakfast or dinner? Obviously, I'd like to say that I see an opportunity up ahead here for the establishment of a decent schools excellence fund in the context of what you need for your schools and where your plans for their development are. And that's the reason why it's so crucial that the decision you make in the next couple of weeks is going to be important for keeping that recovery underway. So I just want to say that, Sean, thank you for the invitation. You and I have had quite a number of discussions about teaching, about inspiration, about motivation, about leadership, and about people's capacity to identify in the younger students where their talent actually lies. And it's easy enough to spot it. I met a little child the other day. She wanted a picture taken. I said, what class are you in? She said, I'm in 5th. So I said, how are you on spelling? She said, good. I said, can you spell churchyard? She spelled churchyard. I said, what's 15 by 2 minus 10? She got all that right, so I got full marks. Not every child can do that, of course, and we want to help them all to their individual level. So I'd just like to finish by saying I was honoured to be appointed head of government just 5 years ago. Very shortly after that, it became obvious that we had a real series of economic challenges up ahead. And in those challenging years, and in participating in all of the sacrifices that you have had to make as well as others, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for keeping the faith with the pupils that you teach. And I'd like to say that from my part, if the remit comes to me in the future to continue this kind of work, education and investment in the services and the facilities that you need to do your job will be a priority and a critical element of where we want to be. And I say that in the realization that the future is in your hands in the sense of all those young children. And when I see their peers around the world, and when I see what emerges through the system, they're in that system now. The next leaders, the social leaders, the innovators, the motivators, the business people, the employers, those who are changing the world up ahead for so many people, they're under your care at the moment. And I know that you're so conscious of that. So, I'm going to have to ask you for the consent and your authority to take over some of your schoolrooms in the next couple of weeks, so that the people of the country can move along and they can take out their pan louis and their pions and they'll make their mark. And on this occasion, they're going to have to make a decision that, in my view, is one of the most crucial of the last 50 years. Because when you look at the challenges outside our country that are now facing with China moving from manufacturing to services, with a glut of oil on the world market, the difficulties in the Middle East, the war in Syria, the terror, the terror with the Islamic jihadists, the unprecedented scale of migration, and the challenge that that's presenting for Europe and Schengen and the Dublin Convention, the outcome of a referendum in Britain across the water and the potential implications of that, both for the Union and our relationship with Britain and Northern Ireland. These are issues that need to be considered very carefully. And for our part, government reflect on that in what we have to do in the time ahead and put in a cushion and a buffer that will be able to deal with those if they happen to impact on our country, as they may well do. And that's why prudent spending and prudent analysis of where we need to be is the issue. So in that sense, I've often said to people, when you be watching the old rockets at Cape Canaveral, before they go off, there'll be smoke in there for 3 or 4 days before the thing moves into shape. And then eventually you hear the voice saying, ignition sequence begins. And then they count down. Well, we haven't arrived at ignition sequence begins yet. It's not far away. So I just like to say to you that I know that as professional people, you have every right to make your choice when that comes along. For me, It's a choice that we'll present to the people in terms of the plan, the strategy, the way forward, and what that can mean for your profession, both as professionals and as citizens. I see a brilliant opportunity up ahead that Ireland Inc. can be in a position where we can continue to be envied by many other countries simply because of our tradition and our history. We've faced the challenge, take off the jacket, roll up the sleeves, make the decisions, and put our country in a safer place. This is not the time to mess around with an economy. This is not the time to cause uncertainty or confusion, because it causes impact on the professional duty and the professional work that you do as well. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, David, for the opportunity to come here and say these few words. I wish you well in your professional work ahead, wish you well as citizens, and thank you for attending here in this wonderful edifice inside this massive building. I was here last week to talk to 3,000 people who were getting very excited, and we sent them off home to get ready for their forthcoming joust with democracy and to explain to people where I think we can be if we get that authorization and authority from the people. Nobody's elected to the next stall yet except the Count Corla. Everybody's got to fight for their position, and that's the way it should be in a democracy. If it comes my way, I'll do my job. Bless you all, and thank you very much. Thank you.